calloused hand and says, this time we draw the line in the land. We ride sovereign steel through fire, through frost. We ain't the
Welcome to 7-Eleven Daily Summary with Bruce Scholl. I am so excited to be here with you. Thank you so much for joining me. What an extraordinary time to be alive and to be witnessing what is happening to our world. Thank you very much for joining me. If you are watching, make sure to share this message out, get this information out to your loved ones, share this, get more eyeballs on it, send it out to your socials. You know what to do. All right, I am going to bring on one amazing new guest. He has never been here before. I reached out to him after seeing quite an amazing story on X just recently. I think it was 2 days ago, and I think that you'll love the information that we're going to be sharing. And I'm not going to reveal who it is at this point, but I had been talking about him yesterday, and maybe you'll remember who it is. Anyway, he's coming to us with some extraordinary grit and patriotism, and this is one of the reasons that I reached out to him. I wanted to share some of that, as you, all of you that are watching know, is that we're going through obviously our own struggles here in Alberta and Canada. And we are forming our own nation. And, we need to have great examples of people standing and putting a line in the sand. And that's what my next guest does. And so I think that we'll have a very interesting conversation. Before I get started, I always want to say thank you. Thank you to the circle of friends. Thank you to the challenges that we have faced over the last little while. It has certainly shaped who I am and who Unscrew the News is. So I appreciate you for following us and making sure to share this out so we get more wakened Canadians or wakened North Americans, really. So I also want to say thank you to nuggetsnacker.com. This is a local business here in Calgary that offers gold and silver. I am not your investment advisor, but I do suggest holding gold and silver. Like I say, we are living through an extraordinary time, and preserving your wealth with gold and silver, I think, is one of the best things to do. Give them a call at 1-866-644-2121, and they can answer all of your questions. All right, we're going to get into it here, and we're going to unscrew some of the news. I'm coming to you from the heart of the battle-ready nation of Alberta. We bring you truth and optimism. Our goal is to break free from the media and the globalist mind control. It is November 3rd, 2025. This is episode number 214. My guest is Thomas Speciale II, and I called this Pokes and Poked in the way that we'll explain it as we go through the interview, but what an extraordinary person to have. I am excited to have him on. So thank you very much for joining me, sir. It is a pleasure, an honor to have you here. And I'm just going to read a little bit about you, and then I would love it if you could share with our audience a bit more about yourself, if you don't mind. I'm just going to get right to, there's so much to talk about as far as your career and as far as who you are. This is just new to me, so I'm going to read this little bit about you, though. His intelligence role as a career intelligence officer, Speciale has worked across the U.S. intelligence community. Most recently, he served as senior advisor for the Director of National Intelligence at the National Counterintelligence and Security Center. Prior to that, he supported war fighters and the IC at the Pentagon's Irregular Warfare Technical Support Directorate under the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Low-Intensity Conflict. Sir, you have such a long history and so varied. I believe that you are also a veteran, and had been in the military. I don't know the exact outfit that you worked in, but please imbue us with a little bit more about yourself.
I grew up in Illinois. I enlisted in the Army Reserves in 1987. And so I've been around in the military, and except for a small break for college, I've been in the military for over 34 years, either on active duty or in the Army Reserves. I've done everything from military police, field artillery forward observer, psychological operations, infantry, human intelligence, interrogator, deployed with special forces to Afghanistan. And then ultimately in around 2009, after I came back from Afghanistan, I moved back to Washington, D.C., and I have served in the national security arena in the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Defense Combating Terrorism Center, the Office of Director of National Intelligence, the National Intelligence Manager's Office, and the National Counterterrorism Center. And so I've basically, the short and the sweet of it is, I've been in the military for 34 years. I've done pretty much everything you can do. And then for the last 20 years of that, I've been involved in the intelligence community.
My goodness. What an amazing history. And obviously, I do appreciate your service and what you've given to your country. And as we were just speaking before hitting record, I said that, you're an extraordinary patriot from what I can tell. You said something funny when I said that. Do you mind just sharing
everybody, it's really easy. You love the Constitution and you're willing to die for it. That makes you a patriot. It should be like a foregone conclusion in the United States.
Should be simple, right?
Well, it should. And I've absolutely loved serving alongside the Canadian military when I've worked, in the military. But, we have, like, and we were talking a little bit about this, we have in my mind, the greatest country in the world, the most freedom. And, we've got to be willing to do everything we have to protect it. And so I tell people I would do what I do for free if I didn't have to feed other people.
Right. Was it Ronald Reagan that said that we're one generation away from losing freedom? Is that what the quote was?
I don't remember who it was, but I think it's true. And I think that's been evidenced with, the last, with about the last, 20 years or so.
Right.
It's been eroded for sure to a great extent. I think that in the United States, 50% of the American people, and I'm approximating, about 50% of the American people don't even have faith in their own government anymore. And that to me breaks my heart, because I've been in service to our citizens as a part of the government and the military for all that time. And so we're not doing, our political leaders and our, Donald Trump calls them the deep state, but really they're just like the bureaucrats that run all these organizations that have been around for too long. They have demonstrated a lack of true faith and allegiance to the U.S. Constitution. And I think that's what put us into the crisis that we were in, several years ago.
Okay, before I get into the actual event that I want to talk about that I reached out to you for, when did you realize that the United States or Western civilization in general was on this slippery slope to hell?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, what I would say is that
only because you said 20 years ago. So did you notice it 20 years ago, or?
No, I think really it's just been put on steroids in about the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But in about 2016, we had a horrific mass shooting in the Pulse nightclub shooting in Florida, where some loser takes a semi-automatic rifle and goes and kills a whole bunch of unarmed gay people in a nightclub, and the terrorists are like celebrating this guy, And I'm going to try and watch my language on here because when I start talking about it, the F-bombs start coming out. But
and I don't mind if you drop an F-bomb.
okay, well,
yeah.
this guy was basically just a douchebag. He was like
Mhm.
a nobody that wanted you're going to get me fired up because this really was the inspiration for me to become involved politically,
I see.
and to realize that we were in real problem because after that shooting, where just one guy with one rifle went into one bar,
Yes.
and the Democrats were literally like in the Middle Ages, they were running around in the streets, draping themselves in ashes and blood of the innocent. And they're screaming at the top of their lungs about how we've got to disarm every American citizen because
Right.
there's terrorists around every corner. And I was like, I had worked in counterterrorism for years, and I knew that that was just asinine. That, one mentally ill guy shooting up one nightclub, as horrific as it is not a terrorist attack. And so
Right.
I started doing a lot of research on gun violence. And you guys are in Canada don't have the same the same freedoms with regard to being able to protect
No.
yourself we do here.
No.
And so the only reason we are not like Canada is because we have the Second Amendment.
Correct.
Because they know that in order to take total power, they have to disarm us. And so
Yes.
what I realized was as I started doing, and I'll be very quick about the numbers here, but Hillary Clinton was running for president at that time, and she was saying that there were 30,000 gun-related deaths in the United States every year. And so I started looking into those numbers, and that was a lie. 20,000 of them were suicides,
Mm.
and 10,000 of them were, only 7,000 of them were actual homicides. About 2,000 of them were accidental shootings or lawful shootings by law enforcement. And they were lumping all those gun violence deaths together
Sure.
to make it a bigger number.
Of
And
course.
so I realized that the Democrat Party were just absolutely lying. And what they were using is they were using those lies to terrorize the American people into trying to take away the Second Amendment.
Right.
And I went a couple steps further, and this is the real revelation that I came to, is that 90% of all of the homicides in the United States take place in 17 inner city neighborhoods. Not 17 cities, 17 neighborhoods.
Wow. Wow.
And so that's Chicago, St. Louis. There's
Yeah.
a neighborhood in Chicago. It's like a war zone. One
Yeah.
in St. Louis. It's a war zone, So all those homicides, but here's a really tragic number. The attempted homicide rate in those same 10 neighborhoods is 10 times that number. But
Mm.
they don't talk about the attempted homicides because
Right.
that would really make those neighborhoods look bad.
Yes.
We don't have a gun violence problem in the United States. We have we really have a Democrat problem because they can't run these inner cities, or they've driven them so far into the hole that they are war zones in some of these neighborhoods. But then I'll land here with this whole motivation for me to become involved in politics. And that is that, I looked at the 20,000 suicides, and those were gun related. And then I said, well,
Mhm.
wait a second, how many other suicides are there? So there's another 20, at this time, there was another 20,000 successful suicides that were like ropes and razor blade violence and asphyxiation violence and jump off building violence. And,
Right.
and there was like this really high number of suicides. And then I looked at the attempted suicides, and it was 1.4 million a year.
Mhm. Mhm.
So when you compare 1.4 million attempted suicides every year to, 30, 40,000,
Gun deaths.
suicides or
Yeah.
gun violence suicides, it was a lie. And so what I did was I started looking at everything: healthcare, education system, immigration, and it just made me madder and madder and madder that the left was trying to destroy Western civilization. And to a great extent in the United States, they've destroyed the black family. They've
Yes.
destroyed these inner cities. They've destroyed young black men.
Yes.
They've pretty much erased black husbands, and they have married minority women to the state. Just like I just wrote something about this recently, that basically they have put the Black community in economic bondage. And they've also done more than that. They've put them in mental bondage because now they don't believe they can ever be anything. And this isn't just the Black community. This is the poor white community and the poor Hispanic community too,
Sure.
that depend on all these government handouts. And then to top matters off, they'll shut the government down and starve them if it comes to it. They don't care about those people. They just want to stay in. They just want to stay in power.
But they're a pawn. They're just a piece on the table, right?
That's correct. They don't care about them. They don't care about their children. They do not care. They will. My recent statement is they will lie, cheat, and steal for power. And if you're effective against them, they will literally murder you.
Right. The Charlie Kirk. Yeah.
As they did with Charlie Kirk, and they tried to do that twice with Trump.
Yes. That we know of, right? That we know of.
That's correct. And there are other attempts, of course, that are stopped.
Sure.
And,
Okay, I'm going to bring up, and nice mug, by the way. Nice mug shot. I love it. All right. So I want to bring this up, and only because it was, I'm going to show it here, but love it. I love this. This is from the Daily Mail. And this snake that you're standing in front of, you're awfully brave. I mean, his fangs and the venom were coming out. Anyway, the videos here. Let me see if I get. Well, maybe it's not that one. Let's see here. I've got it here somewhere. There it is. Do you mind just setting us up here? I've got the video up that's obviously famous now. Yeah, so it's hard to believe that this is famous because it was like totally just an accident that this happened. It's totally That's the way it works, though. That's the way it works.
God is good because this was totally unplanned. On LinkedIn, a conference came up, and it was called the Directors. And Brennan and Clapper were both going to be at the conference, and it was at George Mason University here in Virginia. And so that's just like 40 minutes away from my house. And I was like, well, I'm going to go to this. This
is an opportunity.
Yeah, this is an opportunity for me to maybe, in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to get maybe a sidebar, or I can go up and shake his hand and ask him these two really important questions.
Yes.
And when I get there, we're sitting in the audience, and they say, and we're gonna have open mic. You're gonna be able to ask questions, and so I start thinking about my questions, and the first question that I asked was about. Now this is the former director of CIA, John Brennan, and he is involved in an intelligence community assessment, ultimately, that was used to support the fact that the Russians had meddled in the 2016 election to help Donald Trump win, and that supposedly Donald Trump was a pawn of Russia and all this kind of bullshit. And so my first question was going to be, why did you use the bogus Steele dossier that everybody knew was bullshit as human reporting in this intelligence community assessment that said that Putin had directed the action and that the Russians had favored Trump over Hillary Clinton? Well, I was in the intelligence community, and I knew that there was no reporting on any of that. And I knew that there was no reporting on that. And so when I read those assessments, I was reading them going, where's the beef? Like,
where's the beef? Exactly.
Where's the beef? There's no evidence of this, right? And so the first question is why did they use the dossier in the ICA, and why? And I know why, because they hated Trump. I mean, that's the reason.
Right. ICA, can you tell me what the ICA means?
An intelligence community assessment is when essentially all the intelligence community, the National Security Agency that does signals intelligence, the CIA that does human, DIA that does defense human,
I see.
And Defense SIGINT, and they do military intelligence collection. And then you also had the FBI, which does, in this case, counterintelligence, because they would have been the counterintelligence lead against anybody meddling with a political candidate.
Right. Like
And so
Russia. Yeah.
they had done an intelligence community assessment regarding cyber influence on the election. And the intelligence community assessment said that the Russians did not influence the election via cyber. Well, Obama had a principals committee meeting in December after Trump had been elected. And that principals committee meeting, he basically, I believe what happened in that meeting is that Director Comey of the FBI, was saying, well, what about the influence? What about the influence? And Brennan was probably on board with that as well. And so Obama directed them to go back and to put together a second intelligence community assessment that would include all of the intel, not just cyber. And these documents have been released by the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who I worked for. I went into the administration as a senior advisor for Tulsi Gabbard on counterintelligence and security recently. I was there from January to April this year. And so Tulsi has released those emails and all of the evidence behind essentially what appears to be, I'll just call it the machinations of the leadership of the intelligence community against Donald Trump after he got the election, after he won the election in 2016.
Right.
And this goes, faulty counterintelligence investigations, fake human intelligence that was created by the Democrat Party and
the Steele
through the
dossier.
FBI, and very, very complicated intelligence operation that was ultimately perpetrated. And I tell people these things weren't done to Trump. They weren't done to Carter Page. They weren't done to Michael Flynn. They were done to the American people because they leaked all the information in order to influence the elections. And so it was an election interference, malign influence operation run by the Democrat Party and, their co-conspirators within the intelligence community. So my first question was, why did you do that? You know what I mean? Knowing, of course, that the answer is, well, because I hate Trump. Well, the video you're going to show, and we didn't want him to win. I mean, that's the only answer, right? Yeah. And, but I wanted to kind of put him on the spot and I wanted to hear how he answered it. And then the second question, they wouldn't give me the second question during the conference. They shut off my mic and they wouldn't take my second question. And the second question is this video clip you're going to talk to. Well, I didn't expect Brennan to be at the reception.
Yes.
But he came to the reception.
You thought he would scurry away.
Correct. And he didn't. Yeah. He was like in the reception. So I went up really super politely after he had been there for like probably 20, 30 minutes. And I walked up to him and he was in a little crowd of college students or whatever. And I said, Director Brennan, like, why then also, after all of that stuff, why would you then sign off on a memo saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was likely Russian disinformation when everybody and their mother knew that it was a legitimate laptop? And because I believe that the 51 intelligence officers memo that they signed is actually more damning than the other stuff.
Right.
It really is, because it was like blatant that they were trying to influence the election, that the Democrat Party basically reached out to their intel allies and they said, hey, will you guys, they wrote the memo, and will you guys sign this thing so that Biden will have a talking point during the debate so that he can win the election? But it was a bogus memo. It was all a lie.
Right.
So again, that was my second question. And you're going to see his reaction in these two clips.
Do you mind if I play the one where you're where there's a panel and go ahead. And they got the four? Because I thought it was so intriguing to watch how fidgety Brennan was. You've probably watched it a number of times.
Yeah, it's as a professional human officer that knows how to read body language, it's very indicative of somebody who is terrified of having to answer these questions.
That's what I thought. And I'm not an intelligence specialist
Because
at
it's
all.
so obvious. Yeah, it's so obvious.
It seems like it. Reaching for his water, his left hand is all jittery. He's patting the chair over and over again. Anyway, we'll play it here for a second. Stop me if you wanted to stop and say something, okay?
Okay, no, go
Why
ahead.
don't we go ahead and start taking audience questions? Sound good? Why don't we start over here? It should be on.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. First, I want to introduce myself. My name is Tom Speciale. I've been a career intelligence officer for over 20 years, in the military for over 34 years. I recently left the DNI as a senior advisor for Tulsi Gabbard on counterintelligence and security. And in fact, I made many of the suggestions on dismantling some of the things that are being dismantled.
Look at him. He's wiping his face already.
Yeah, and that's preparing a lie. That's what that's called. When you
Is that
cover,
right? Okay.
when you're touching your mouth, you're thinking about what am I going to say when he asks me this question.
Oh my. Okay.
And
Yeah,
also
that's what
made
that
some
is.
suggestions on improvements, which I'd love to talk to you guys after.
And scratching his nose.
Yeah.
Because hopefully it's going to be going to some important desks
Again.
very shortly. I want to agree completely, Director, with your assessment on Iran being on their heels. We've got to keep them on their heels until they reform. We've got to do that. I disagree on the deep state, only because Trump says it's the deep state. But as we all know, it's really just the entrenched bureaucrats that run the country. I'll get to my question, I will.
Yeah, please.
But I want to establish sort of my bona fides on this question before I ask it, because I really hesitated to put you guys on the spot on this in public. But if you're not going to be at the after hours, I got to take my chance now. I was at the DNI when the first ICA was released regarding.
And what does that mean? Does that have any significance? Did he reach
Well,
for
actually, go ahead and let this play through, and then I'll explain the whole thing.
Okay.
Go ahead and let
Let's
it play
play the whole thing.
Regarding cyber influence on the 2016 election. I was there, I was working in the NIM, I read it. I also was involved in setting up the principals committee meeting that took place in December that resulted in President Obama directing a more fulsome, because I understand the difference between a cyber ICA and a total whole of government ICA intelligence collection on Russian involvement or influence in the election. And I noticed immediately in the ICA, the second ICA, because I had access to the classified ICA, that there were statements in that ICA that were not supported with the sourcing that was associated to the ICA, specifically that that Putin had directed the action and that Putin had, that the Russians were actively trying to support President Trump instead of just sow chaos.
Your question.
My question. There was an email that went around from General Clapper to yourself and Hayden. I'm sorry, not Hayden.
That's right.
Yourself and Comey, et cetera, that basically said we all got to get on board with this, otherwise it isn't going to work, basically. And I think that email puts everybody in the crosshairs. I would like to hear what your justification was for supporting the dossier that was known to be false being used as source material in the second ICA.
I don't know who put you up to this.
Nobody put me up to this, sir. I'm here on my
I don't know
own.
what role you played or who you are, but it's a bunch of bullshit that you just passed on.
The emails are clear, sir.
Bullshit.
The emails are clear.
Bullshit.
The emails are clear. The second question
No, I think we're going to go.
is
Look, you can, look, we can talk about it. Talk about it in the reception.
Russian disinformation.
No, we didn't say
No
that.
one
Get
did.
the facts
You
straight.
said it was likely Russian disinformation.
No, we did not. We said
Yes,
it.
you did.
No.
In that memo,
Read
it
the
says
letter.
that
I'm
you
ignoring
signed
it. Okay.
And I just like, I know I'm getting
Okay.
yelled by
All right. You
Yeah.
can stop
three
there.
after hours.
That was
Okay.
really fascinating to watch him. Okay.
Yeah,
Explain
there's
it for us.
there's several things on the body language I think that are very important to point out. Clearly, turning his body in different directions, trying to deflect away from the question,
Right.
touching his nose, touching his mouth. He's planning what he's going to say. because he knows what question's coming, or he's thinking about what lie he's going to say one way or
Right.
another. The fidgety with his hands, all those things. But also you'll catch him grooming, where you'll notice, and this is a really great example of this because none of the other people are grooming. Nobody
Yes.
else is uncomfortable. Only he's uncomfortable. Okay. And he's grooming by brushing his hair. He's doing all kinds of stuff, looking at his clothing and picking stuff off his pants. That's grooming, right? That is heightened. And you'll notice Hayden here is crossing his legs. That is an absolute distance. I am distant from this. And because he wasn't involved in any of this at that point. So he's
Right.
happy to not be being criticized. Right?
He's like, I'm not in his shoes. Thank God.
I am not in his shoes right now. Okay. So this question, when I remember, I didn't plan on making a public statement. I planned on having more of a private statement.
Sure.
I went and looked at my resume. I actually wasn't at the DNI at the time that it happened. I went into the DNI. I was in the Defense Combating Terrorism Center. So I was working in a classified environment. I was reading those reports.
Right.
But I was actually, I didn't go into the DNI until November of 2017. And so by that point, Trump was already in office and they were resisting him. And, and we were talking about election security and, so I kind of got my timeline was a little muddled because I hadn't really planned on having to do this publicly. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but the crux of the question is, you knew that the Biden that the dossier from the Democrat Party was not legitimate. Why did you insist on it being used in the ICA, the Intelligence Community Assessment? And he couldn't answer. He didn't want to. He doesn't want to answer that question.
No,
he has answered it. Yeah. He has answered it publicly. If you watch his other interviews where he basically says, we gave the president the briefing that we would give every president. But there's a lot of problems with how they briefed Trump because they should have told Trump in December. Excuse me. They should have told Trump in December that the dossier was bogus. They didn't. They used it with the Mueller investigation and they let it run for a whole year.
Right.
So now you're talking seditious conspiracy because they knew it shouldn't have been involved. They knew it shouldn't have been in the ICA and they tried to cover it up.
Right.
And it resulted in the Mueller investigation into Trump.
Well, I mean, would that not have been part of the plan? Is that they had this, what they continued to say was
correct,
was important information, so they needed to use that to obviously get the Mueller
correct and to try and run him out. They tried to. They were trying to run him out. They wanted to.
Well, how many times do you have to impeach the guy, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, they didn't impeach him over this. They impeached him over other things that they also made up. Okay. Right. Which were also offensive counterintelligence operations against the American people. But this one in particular, the Russian collusion hoax, was I believe, the most egregious, because they knew that it was bullshit and they used it and they did it in order to hurt his presidency. And, they basically did it to hurt their own country. And that's where I think, again, a lot of people will make the argument. They'll say, well, they did it to hurt Trump. Well, if you do it to hurt the president, then you're doing it to hurt the country. Right. So you are committing seditious conspiracy against your country.
Right.
Not
absolutely
a person. You're doing it that is damaging to the country. The Russians were probably laughing their ass off the whole time.
Well, probably. I mean, okay. And this is going back a long way. This is completely off topic. But when you say that, this is my understanding, is they would have rather had Hillary in power anyway.
Right. And that's what all the reporting, that's what all the intelligence reporting said. They didn't, I mean, the Russians did not think Trump could win. Yeah. Honestly, listen, Bruce, that's why they did this, because they never, ever thought he was going to win. So nobody would have ever found anything out.
Correct.
And
Correct.
that's why they had to get rid of Michael Flynn so quickly, because he would have found out and they would have all probably hung for it. I mean, it would have been
Wow.
bad news if Michael Flynn had found out while he was still the national security advisor.
Okay, I'm going to give you 23 seconds to come up with an answer to this one.
Okay.
When are they going to be held accountable?
Yeah.
All right, let's play this out here, and
Yeah.
let's see the poke and the poking.
Yeah. This is at the reception afterwards, and I ask him my second question.
Okay.
Why didn't you do memo on the Hunter Biden? Why? Because I think it. And you misrepresented that. We never said it was disinformation. We said it was Russian influence operations, which is what they do. There's a big difference between influence operations. No, you don't know that. Yes, you don't know. Comey knew.
The literature said it had all the hallmarks I believe.
Oh my God. Okay, so
Totally
here's
unplanned.
here's the other question for you is if you had to do it all, if you could do it all over again, what would you have done different? Because
I wouldn't have done anything different, Bruce. I wouldn't have done anything differently. I wouldn't have. A lot of people are like out on Twitter. They're like, I'd have, knife handed him to the throat and all this kind of bullshit. Okay. I had him over the barrel as soon as he reacted the way he did. If you notice my body language and the way I'm talking, I was like very sort of welcoming him to answer the question honestly, right? I was like,
you were.
Why sign that memo that you'd already, and I'm trying to basically say you already fucked up the other one. Why would you try it again? You know what I mean? Like, it didn't work the first time. Why would you do it again? And so that's why I take the first step forward, and then he comes at me, right? And I'm trying to be like a friendly.
He's obviously threatened. I mean,
I'm trying to
talking about body language here.
Well, I mean, clearly the poking is, he's trying to exert some dominance. And when I didn't buckle, like when I didn't back away and I didn't become aggressive in response, he was like diffused. He'd realized that his emotions had come out and he was like, oh shit, I gotta get out of this situation. I'm looking right. But the funny thing about this, Bruce, is that, remember, I went by myself. I didn't know this guy was shooting this video.
Oh, is that right? Hey?
Yeah. So when I turn around and I'm smiling, right after that, I looked at the guy and I said, and he must have shut his camera off. And I said, can you send me that? I want to post that on the, and he said, I'll send it. And I gave him my business card and he shared it to me. And so my point is that this was God, because neither of these two questions I had planned for. Right. It was just, this is just my normal routine. And we just happened to catch his, and it's, it's gone viral on the internet. It's like, I can't even tell you how many millions of views it's had, but it's got to be up over 40 million views by now, with everybody who's copied it and shared it.
Well, it looks like 3 million from here.
From on, that's just on mine alone.
Yeah, that's just yours.
Yeah, that's not. And I had very few Twitter followers. I had very few Twitter followers because I don't do Twitter except to share stuff about Charlie Kirk and stuff. And now my Twitter followers have blown up and all this stuff has blown up. And it was totally unplanned. I mean, it was planned, but it was planned by a higher power. It wasn't planned by this guy.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't planned by you, I guess, eh? Well, good for you.
Yeah, it wasn't planned by this guy.
Well, I'm glad that you put yourself in that situation, because you embodied every conservative patriot, I think, out there, being able to stand up in front of Brennan and ask him the hard question, because none of them want to
Here's another really funny thing. Clapper was supposed to be at this thing too.
Oh, is that right?
And he backed out about 2 days prior to the conference. Okay. And can you imagine if both of them, if both of them had been sitting on that stage? That would have been epic, right?
Yeah.
And then I found out also that Andrew McCabe, who was the primary investigator
I
on
remember
Crossfire
him.
Hurricane,
Yeah.
he was in the audience,
Oh, really?
and apparently he bailed before the reception.
Is that right? Well, he
Yes.
probably saw the heat and the laser beams coming from you.
And I was like, not even laser beaming anybody. You know, it was
Well,
funny because after the
you were
first
somebody that
question-
had some information and
Oh,
obviously
yeah,
had some knowledge, right? But
Yeah.
sorry,
But
go ahead.
the funny thing is they went after the first question. I went and sat back down in the audience, and I saw the hostess lady getting like some security guards and stuff like all rallied up, right? And so I got out of my chair and I went over to them and I was like, "Do you guys want me to leave?" You know what I mean? And they're like, "No, you can stay. You can stay." And I was like, "Okay."
All right, I'm going to stay then.
It was great. And then of course I got the second clip. So it was epic, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just all God. I didn't have anything to do about it. It's just God did it.
Well, I mean, you were embodying. Like I said, you were embodying many of us, and I think that's probably why it went viral. Is that many of us wish to be standing in front of our tyrants, these out of control, corrupt. I don't know what you want to call them, but evildoers is the best that I can come up with sometimes. Is that you and I were talking before. It's so hard, and I'm sure you're probably in the same frame of mind. It's so hard for me to understand how someone can do things that they know are detrimental to the country and to the people. Like you say, they couldn't care less if they starved these families, or they couldn't care less if people starved and died, under some of the things that they're doing.
Yeah.
And we see the same thing here in Canada. How those aren't people. How are they, or who are they?
Let me give you a really great way to kind of put all of this into one context.
Mm-hmm.
I'm down here in Virginia, and we have Abigail Spanberger's running for governor.
Oh my God, that person.
CIA agent, operative.
Yes.
That says she wore disguises and shit like that. She didn't. I don't think she did. And then running against this a black Marine who I absolutely love, Winsome Sears, right? And we have an attorney general who would be the head lawyer for the whole state. His name's Jay Jones. And Jay Jones, it came out a few weeks ago that Jay Jones said in his text messages that he hoped that his political opponent was murdered, and that his children were murdered, and they would be dead in the arms of his wife. And then after they were dead, he would go and piss on all their graves. And he said that in his text messages to a friend of his. And it leaked.
This guy.
His friend shared it and put it out on the internet. And Abigail Spanberger was confronted about withdrawing her endorsement for Jay Jones. And she condemned what he said, but she didn't withdraw her endorsement.
Right.
And that tells you everything. That tells you everything you need to know about her. She's not a woman of integrity. She's not a woman of character or conviction. She's not even a moral person. Because, and I have said this, if my best friend growing up from high school said some evil stuff like that, we'd be done. It would be over. I wouldn't want them around me. I would tell everybody I knew to stay away from them, because they are an evil person. And what is this saying, that all it takes for evil to prosper is for good men to do nothing.
Right.
And so in this vein of what we're talking about, they hated Trump so much that they were willing to sacrifice their oath. They were willing to turn their back on their country and to turn their back on everybody that had elected him, because of their own personal feelings. And that is the height of that is the height of the level of vindictiveness and evilness that these people are capable of to hold their power. It's all about retaining their power. They will lie, cheat, and steal, and they will even murder you to silence you, like the Steve Scalise attempt, the Donald Trump attempt, the Abraham Lincoln assassination. You know, like the left will murder you if they don't like what you're saying. Period.
And the step before that, though, is the censorship. I mean,
Oh,
you're
of
not
course.
allowed to say, not allowed to question anything, as we saw during the dark times, like I call it. The
Yeah.
dark times, you weren't allowed to question Fauci.
You know why they have
or-
to silence you? Do you know why they have to silence you, Bruce?
Well, because they have no argument, I guess.
Well, because they can't. Then if they can silence you, then you have no power.
Right.
And that is why, you know, the founding fathers of the United States had big arguments about whether or not the Second Amendment should be actually have been the first, and the First Amendment should have been the second. And they realized that
Right,
if
right,
you
right.
lose free speech, then you've got
Nothing
to
else matters.
then nothing matters. Then
Yeah.
nothing matters. And so that is why I think, and this kind of plays into your, you know, I hate the idea that you feel like you have to secede from Canada, right? Like I hate that because it's a very volatile stance to take. Okay.
Yes.
It's a very volatile stance to take. And, I teach, merit badges for scouts, and I always show for the merit badge for citizenship in the community, citizenship in the community. I always show the scene from Braveheart, the movie Braveheart, where he
One of my
goes
favorite.
to Congress and to the convention, and they're rallying the militia and all this, and he speaks out against it. He says, I believe we can rule ourselves, but we've got to do everything we can to avoid violence, because violence is going to be bloodshed and it's going to be in the streets. We have to do everything we can to avoid that. And it's going to be our kids, and our kids are going to witness it. And war is terrible. And, ultimately, of course, he is outvoted, and the war comes to his doorstep, just like he said. And then he becomes involved in the revolution. And my point is, in saying that, that we have to do everything we can. And I really, really think that what you're doing, Bruce, with having this, with this platform, and what you're doing to try and bring this information and make awareness to other Canadians, is that we have to do everything we can to get free speech before we have to take free speech. Does that make sense?
100%.
And because, one of the things, and you can probably find it, there's a lot of it'd be really great information about free speech regarding, I wrote an op-ed for Vets for Trump many years ago. And it basically says that the reason we have free speech is so we can have hate speech. Because if we can't express freely our opinions, then we cannot address the sort of the fluctuations in the culture and in the values, and we can't moderate back to what's in the best interest of the country. But if you're afraid to talk, if you've lost your free speech, then the grievances fester and the ideologies fester. And then ultimately you end up with either a totalitarian regime that is arresting people and jailing people for free speech, which is, what is a very likely possibility, or you end up in violent revolution. And I don't want that for anybody. I've seen violent revolution all around the world. I'm a very big historian about our own violent revolution, as well as the Civil War. And we don't want those things, Bruce. We've got to do everything we can in our power to prevent them. But at the same time, we have to be prepared to fight for the inalienable human rights that God has given all of us, whether you're a Canadian or not.
Yeah, I agree. I want to go back and you had said something. You were looking for a quote, and I found it while you were talking.
Mhm.
And I want to use it. I want to say it because I think it's so powerful. I've used it before.
Mhm.
And I believe it's from MLK.
Mhm.
He said, "We will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends."
Yeah,
And I think it's so powerful.
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Um,
Yeah.
what I wanted to tell you, and I try not to make this about me, but we're having discussions about what's going on in your country, what's going on in our country,
Mhm.
and some of the new bills that our government, the ones that actually got into power because of the hate of Trump. I mean,
Mhm.
they I don't know how familiar you are with Mark
Mm-mm.
Carney got into power, and they used an elbows up was the term that they were using, and it's a hockey term. So
Mhm.
when you say elbows up, you're going to go fight essentially,
Right.
and so they made Trump the villain here. Not that he
Mhm.
needed to really work on that for
Mhm.
Canadians because the media has done such a great job of villainizing him.
Right.
But they used him and made him the villain and
Mhm.
tried to make Canadians believe that our disparity and our destruction and our economic
Mhm.
woes are
Mhm.
because of this bad orange man.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so they've made him into the villain, and this WEF puppet that we have
Mhm.
today, this banker,
Mhm.
uh, you know, they really have no concern whatsoever for the
Mhm.
Canadian people or people in general.
Mhm.
Uh, you're familiar with Cloud Piven. I'm sure you are. You're very intelligent and you understand all of this stuff way better than I do. But the Cloud Piven strategy is, I think, is fully at play
Mhm.
in the United States and in Canada, where they're overwhelming our resources.
Mhm.
Our good naturedness by bringing in millions and millions of immigrants
Yeah.
and then giving them free healthcare and
Yeah.
free food and free housing. And then,
Mhm.
in our communities, they're saying, "Oh, we don't have enough housing." Well, guess why?
Yeah,
I
because
mean,
you've
unfortunately,
invited a whole bunch of foreigners to come live there. That's right.
yeah, and you're paying them more than my senior parents. They're
Right.
giving more money to immigrants than they're paying seniors. So
Mhm.
seniors are being priced out of their homes and having to live in tents
Yeah.
because I mean I'm sure you're seeing it in Virginia as well, but um, crazy times.
Mhm.
It is absolutely crazy times, and I appreciate all your words. I you know what? I don't worry about myself so much, but I do know that I have to get these messages out, and I
Yeah.
know that some of the new laws that they're bringing in could potentially put me into a compromised position, but I don't care because it doesn't matter. It's
Right.
more important that we get these messages out and and alert people and hopefully shake them from their slumber. They're so afraid of no, they're not afraid. They're so asleep that they
Yeah.
don't even notice what's happening around them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. Because I will tell you, we've been having a conversation. I have a buddy of mine that we have a conversation with. We've made it really easy for the weak to survive.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, because
and
they're not threatened by anything.
because there's nothing there because you feed them.
Yes.
You buy their vote and they give you power and you stay in your mansion and they subsist. And I mean, and that's, I think, to a great extent what they've done with immigrants. It
Yes.
just boggles my mind that, in the United States and then ultimately all the way up into Canada, I'm sure, we had 20 million illegal immigrants just came in like 4 years. That's like 8% or something like that of the US population.
It's crazy. It is crazy how many people you guys have brought in.
Yeah, and it destabilizes everything: the education system, the infrastructure, the jobs, the housing, the healthcare. but they don't care. The Democrats don't care. There's a great, this has been years ago. I read a book. I think it's Megyn Kelly. Fighting a cold, sorry. And she talks about kind of left brain people and right brain people. And there are people out there, Bruce. Who literally they feel good by giving people somebody else's stuff. Like their whole existence is about giving other people people's stuff. And but not their own stuff.
Right.
They're not going to give their own stuff. They're only going to take away from people that it's not themselves. And that is like the height. That is the height of narcissism and, egomania, that somehow you're like above it all because you feel like, and it's the same thing with the open border or the free healthcare or the woke education system or whatever, as long as it doesn't, and they got their kids all in private school. Right?
Sure, they do.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. It's a mess. It's a mess. And it's because they don't really care about those people. They really only care about their place in life, their position in the world. And until they start feeling the pain themselves, they're never going to change.
Okay, so here's a question to you, and I don't know if you know this answer. You're intelligent. You've got so much. You probably can't share with me a lot of the stuff, but where are these? They call themselves elites. I call them parasites. Where are they going to be if they destroy the world? If they destroy North America? Like what is their escape plan?
I don't think they realize. I actually think that they're very ignorant and foolish, and they don't understand how it actually all falls down. And they're the first ones that are devoured.
Right.
That they don't realize that they're the first ones that are devoured. The only ones, because ultimately everyone gets devoured except the very, very top.
Right.
And the very, very top have all the guns and they have all the security.
Yeah.
Right. And so they can man the walls and protect themselves where everybody else is just fending for themselves. And I think that this is what has made the United States such an influential force around the world and has made us less susceptible to, these agendas, because ultimately, and that's why they have to take away the Second Amendment, because they know that they can only go so far before I call them the Virginia hillbillies, that's a term of endearment. The Virginia hillbillies will show up and then it'll be over. And they know that. And they know that it'll be over.
Yeah.
And so the only way that they can ultimately take power is to disarm all the Virginia hillbillies.
Right.
But here is, I think, the genius of our founding fathers, as well as I think, and I don't know. I would be very curious. I'm not a Canadian historian. I'd be very curious to understand why the rugged frontiersman mentality of the United States did not perpetuate across Canada as well. The only thing I can think of is because it was ruled by the British.
Right.
Right. And, so everybody, they still, and I don't know the history well enough to know what the difference was, but the United States was basically ruled by a bunch of Virginia hillbillies, and they weren't going to listen to anybody who was going to tell them what to do. They just weren't.
Yeah. Well,
and it didn't matter what their pedigree was. They weren't going to do it.
Right. Well, JJ and I had a conversation. JJ Carroll, I mentioned to you, we had an interview today, and he said, I don't understand how we signed over, or when did we agree to give up 40% or how much of your paycheck you guys give out? I know we're 40 plus as far as our taxes are concerned, that comes straight off of your paycheck. Right. But you guys went to war, with the British. I think it was 3% or something like that,
right?
For tea or something. Wasn't that
right? for tea. We
Yeah.
we weren't going to pay any taxes on tea. Like that's it.
Yeah. So this 40%, how did we get to here? Is my point, right? Where,
Yeah. I and that's why I say I don't know the trajectory. I think it would be a very interesting, you know, I think it would be a very interesting historical, timeline, like what was different. Because I don't know, but I really do think that a big part of it was just the founding fathers, and the founding fathers established in the United States. They established this constitutional republic that basically said the government is not in charge. The people are in charge. I have an executive order that I'm trying to propose to Trump that in every federal building in every federal building and every military base and stuff, there's always like a picture of the president, the vice president, whatever.
sure.
And I want a banner over that says "We the People" in every federal building, in every military base. And I think that is sort of a fundamental ideological, it's kind of in our DNA that the politicians are not in charge here.
Right.
They work for us. They are our representative to go do shit we don't want to do or talk about. Right.
Yeah.
And, and ultimately, I think that's probably a big part of the difference is that this is a country that was founded by the people. And we kind of said, well, we got to have some people that go and like collect taxes for the war. And that was supposed to be it. And of course it's gotten worse from there, but that's at the DNA level of what it means to be an American.
Well, and you asked me this question early on, when I was mentioning that, we want to break off. We want to not be attached to the Titanic that's sinking in north of you guys. But now I've lost my train of thought.
We were talking about, secession and whether or not you wanted to join the United States or be an independent country.
That's it. In regard to the United States, that would be a close second to, having our own nation. And if we were, I don't know what that looks like exactly, but if we had some sort of an agreement that this is, a certain amount of time where we work together quite closely so that we could, provide oil and resources or whatever it is to the United States, and you provide some protection while we gather our stuff, get our borders together, and
I love you, Bruce. Listen, I love you, man. You got to have big dreams, right? Like that's the only way to live.
We've been 120 years of being the shit. We've been in the bottom of the shitter here. We are the engine. I don't know how much you know about Alberta. We are the engine of Canada. We provide so much in regard to resources and money to the country. We actually pay. I don't know if you know this, but we have equalization payments. So other provinces don't have the resources or don't have the will and the strength or the determination to create what we've done in our province. So we actually provide billions of dollars to other provinces, and we have for many, many years.
Sure, because you have natural resources that bring a lot of revenue into the country.
Yeah, but we also have a can-do attitude. We say, fuck off with the UBI. We don't want government handouts. We want the government to get out of our way, stand out of the way while we make the country successful and prosperous. Our government today says, no, we're not going to give you oil. We're not going to allow you to put it onto a tanker. We're not going to allow you to do this and that. But it's to spite Canadians. They continue to get oil in the east from Saudi Arabia and won't take our oil from Alberta. How ridiculous is that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy times. Anyway, so we're done being second fiddle and being shit on, and they continue to do this. The many prime ministers, we just don't get a fair shake. So.
Yeah. Only look, it go, and I would refer back to what I said about the Patriot.
Mhm.
There are, I think that one of the things that is the genius of Trump is that Trump believes there's always a way.
Mhm.
Okay, he believes that there is always a way to get what everybody needs. And what I would suggest is to be in deep prayer about how can we make this so that everybody gets what they need and that we're properly respected. And again, I don't know the details of the situation, but I'm just saying that the way I think. Have you ever heard the sort of the parable of the unreasonable man? Have you ever heard that?
I think I probably have. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a George Bernard Shaw parable, and it says the reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable man insists in adapting the world to himself. Therefore, all progress occurs because of the unreasonable man. And I think that Trump is the unreasonable man. He believes that there's always a better way of doing something. And so it's really about thinking outside the box, coming up with new strategies. We all kind of, for some reason, and I think it's just probably just the sort of like the dimensional capacity of our brains. It takes somebody like that to come up with the outside the box strategy that everybody was like, holy crap, why didn't we ever see this before? Right.
Mhm.
I do believe that there is a way for Canada to stay one entire country and you still get what you should have as
Mhm.
the engine, as that economic engine of Canada. But I don't know what that is. And I'm just, I guess what I don't
You're
want
right.
to,
We'll just pray for that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, what I don't want to do is automatically jump because, I ran into people all over Virginia during the last several years. They're like, we got to go to Civil War, and I'm like, well, let's wait a minute. Okay. Let's think about this. Okay. And there's always a way. And especially today with the technology, the AI, one of my favorite former Canadians, I guess he's a former Canadian now, is Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
I think he's American now.
I don't
But
know if he is.
I don't know. But I mean, there's always a way. And so I think that it's about prayer and it's about thinking outside the box. And, I thought it was funny. And we had a lot of jokes about when Trump was going back and forth. I think it was with Trudeau.
That was
Yeah.
awesome. I
When
thought
he
it
was
was
like,
funny.
well,
Yeah.
why don't you guys just join America? Then you get our constitution and you guys can have guns and shit, and then you had a bunch of Canadians and they were like hanging American flags and stuff.
Yeah. That
And,
would have been me. That probably would have been me.
and I was laughing because here's the reason I was laughing. My family were all like thinking, well, there's Donald Trump being crazy kooky again. And I'm like, why not? Like, why not? Like, why not just join America, buy Greenland, you know what I mean? Like, I know it sounds crazy, but it wasn't that long ago we bought Alaska.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like there is a way to do the cost benefit analysis. And I think through tariffs, I think to a great extent, that's what Trump's trying to do. Trump is trying to come to what is the best economic relationship so that Canadians can benefit and Americans can benefit. But on the cultural side and on the socialism side, Bruce, it's going to take somebody to, pick up that banner and be like, we don't have to be socialists. We can moderate back to something that's a little bit more rewarding than than this communist trajectory we're on.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But you see what I'm getting at? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I
I
do.
don't want to. I'm always optimistic that there's another way. You know, I'm always optimistic there's another way.
Well, we don't. When we say that we want to secede, we think that there's always a way to negotiate. That's how we see it. We don't see that we have to go to war to get it. We just see that we have to say, you know what, we're going to be separate, whether you like it or not. You know, we're going to do it and say, okay, well, if you don't like it, too bad. But we're going to be over here. We're going to be doing our own thing, and we're no longer going to be paying attention to your constitution, your laws, your judges, or whatever the case is. That's how I see it.
Right.
Because I don't think anybody really wants to go to war here.
Right. And
we're rugged. We're pioneers.
I know you are.
We're ready to go. But the thing is that we don't think that that's necessarily the best way to go about it. So, it's an interesting time, though, isn't it, Thomas?
It is.
Yeah,
it really is. And, you know, it kind of goes back. I think we were talking about this on, before we jumped on, but, you know, a lot of things are just outside of our control. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about, I think this was before we were live and, and broadcasting, but, like the world would be a very different place if Trump had been assassinated.
Yes.
For worse. And then at the same time, Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and I'm devastated by the fact. I cried for days. I cried. I don't cry about like people I don't know.
Yes.
But I cried for days. I still get sad that he's no longer with us. But I look at how God worked in the world and how many millions of people came to Christ that day.
Yes.
Like, so what I would say to you, Bruce, here's what I'm going to tell you. Here's what I'm going to tell you, and maybe put some ease in your heart about all of this. And I'm talking specifically about Canada and Alberta. And you got to walk in fearless faith. You have to walk in fearless faith, and you have to trust God's plan, and you have to do it blindly. Blindly.
Yes.
With fearless faith. And if you do, then you can begin to see what because God is doing everything to his good purpose. So whatever is going to happen is going to be to his good purpose. And I don't know what that is, but, I mean, for years, my daily prayer was, bless me and protect my family, and, bless what I'm doing is going to serve your will. That was like my prayer for years. And now what I pray is send me. I don't go into all of that other stuff. Send me. And, clearly I think, God's put it on your heart and you have been sent to do something. And now you have to keep doing what you're doing and have faith that what you're doing is to his greater purpose, and whatever his greater purpose will be revealed. It will be revealed, just like the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
I couldn't have imagined that ever happening. And then you look at the effect that it had on the world. And would you have imagined that? I couldn't have imagined that.
No,
I couldn't.
No, it's shocking.
It's shocking. Yeah. Shocking. 100%. Yeah.
Thomas, this has been special.
Well, I appreciate it. I love having these kinds of conversations, Bruce. This is really where this is what I love about it. It drives my wife crazy because I can have a meaningful conversation with just about anybody, because I come to it genuinely and with love, and, with a little bit of Jesus mixed in.
Yeah.
And, we, try and look at, analytically the problems and laugh a little bit. I'll share with you just a bit. So I told you I've been doing this for a little over 2.5 years, and my purpose, or what I thought was my purpose, was to document these stories. And obviously I had this
end goal. Like, and I told you, if I'm not here tomorrow because something happened to me, whatever that is,
Right.
and I would have these documented so that they could go on, they could live, even if, we got censored, even if the internet was, ceased to exist.
Right.
I'm storing these off, so that they can be resurrected.
Right. Right.
Um,
Right.
and
Hmm.
but what I gained from it, because I didn't think it wasn't for me, right?
Mhm.
I wasn't doing this for me.
Right.
But what I realized in the process was I learned
Hmm.
so much by talking to people like you. I
Hmm.
learned so much.
Me too,
I,
man. Me too.
that there's this absolute huge warmth that I get from
Mm.
experiencing other people's lives and their
Mm.
stories, and it's enriched me so much more than I ever thought that I could get.
Mm.
Um,
Amazing. God's good,
it-
man. He's good every day. He's good
he's-
every day.
he is good every day.
Every-
Amen to that.
Amen.
Amen to that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I appreciate you. If you don't mind, I want to say thank you so much for being here and sharing. But this feels more like episode 2 and 3 and 4, if you're open to it.
Yeah, sure.
Uh,
Absolutely.
This has been like I said, it's been really enriching to me, and it's been amazing as far as getting to know you and understanding a bit more. But I know that you're a wealth and a deep well of other information that maybe you'd share with us. And I
Sure.
think that you have lots more to give. So I would love to be able to reach out to you and do this again.
Absolutely. Anytime, man. Anytime. And just, walk in faith, brother. That's all we can do.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Thank you.
it.
That's all
Amen.
we can do. One other thing, I want to reflect on this opportunity as well, but there's such a divide. When I talk to somebody like you, and we have this great conversation, and we're sharing it with this audience, it's so different than what I imagine. These demon people doing.
Right.
They don't care,
Mm.
and it's are we?
Yeah.
Is the authenticity even more authentic because we realize how demonistic these people are, and we I don't know, but there's something. It's so
Yeah, I think I had a revelation after the shooting with the Catholic
Mhm.
school in Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
And the kid that shot that school up had a journal. And in that journal, he had drawn a picture of himself staring into the mirror, and the reflection back was of a demon.
Mm.
And he wasn't like, he was trans, but he wasn't like in full transition mode or anything like that. He was, but the reflection was of a demon coming at him from the mirror. And he had a conversation in the journal between him and the demon. And then I started thinking about like the drag queens, and how if you go look at images of drag queens, they don't even look human. They look like fantasy humans. They look like supernatural humans. They don't look like a normal person. They're all blue and purple and huge hair and these big dresses. And it's like fantasy. It's fantasy. It's fetish. It's not them trying to be a real person.
Right.
They are being a pretend vision of themselves. And then I think about like the purple hair, the blue hair people, the nose ring. You see the people with the piercings all over here and all over their nose and all around their mouth and the big earrings and just hideous looking, inhuman looking. They are inhuman looking. And then you see the parades where the men are dressed as dogs, naked dogs, and they like crawl around on the ground, and the kids come up and pet them like real dogs.
Yeah.
Like this is really, I used to say it was just mental illness, but it's not. It's a spiritual illness.
Mhm.
There is a spiritual illness, And what it is they are putting on their outside of their body what they see from the inside.
Hmm.
They are wearing on the outside the way
Yes.
they see themselves, and I guess the example would be that, we just had Halloween, right? And so people dress up as something, they do it one day and it's over.
Right,
Like
right,
I
right, right.
pretended that I was going to be a Power Ranger or whatever, but I'm not really a Power Ranger. These people actually believe they're the Power Ranger. They actually believe that they're a dog. They actually believe that they're a furry or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it is a delusion. It's also a fetish, a sexual fetish, but it's all about making themselves feel good, which is the opposite of what God says to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's the exact direct opposite. And so as people of faith, the direct opposite of heavenly is it's demonic.
Satanic. Yeah.
It's demonic.
Yeah.
And then you look at some of these people and they are dressing themselves up as non-humans.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get, and just to add a little bit of more fuel on the fire here, then you get the people who pretend to be having sex with the dogs and pretend to be having sex with the horses. So there's, we're talking, this is a real spiritual sickness. It's, and the only thing I think that can save a lot of these people is Jesus. Drugs isn't going to save them.
Certainly not. No.
Medication's not going to save them. The only thing that's going to save them is Jesus.
Amen to that.
Yeah, so that's, I think, what you were getting at there. Is that, why is it that we can't have a conversation with these people? It's because they're living in a different universe. I don't know if you watch Stranger Things, but it's like they're in the upside down.
They're in the upside down for sure.
They're in the upside down.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Sir?
Yeah.
I appreciate your time.
Hey, no problem. It's a great conversation.
This has been amazing. And okay, so I want to leave it off with, what are you up to? Where are you going to next? Which of the rats are you going to corner again?
I have no plans. I didn't have planned to corner him. I was in total accident. No,
where's God sending you next? Let's put it that way.
I have no idea where God's sending me next. You know what? That's probably the best way to answer it. I have no idea. I don't know where God is sending me next. I have some things that God has put on my heart to do. And I am doing those things. And Jordan Peterson talks about slaying dragons. I love the metaphor that he uses. I had a lot of dragons as a kid. Mm-hmm. Some of them I raised myself. And ultimately I was able to slay all those dragons through the grace of God and through a lot of hard work. Yeah. And a lot of suffering in many ways. And I slay dragons now for a living. That's what I do. And I go, I call myself an intelligence hitman. I go where the problems are, I solve the problem, and then I move on to the next, problem. And so I have some big dragons that I'm trying to slay. And I'm going to be victorious through the grace of God. I'm going to be victorious. I know that.
All right. I'm just writing down Dragon Slayer because I don't want to forget it, but
yeah, it's a great metaphor that I love it. It's one of the things that really attracted me to Jordan Peterson was that he talked about slaying dragons. You start off with slaying little dragons, and you slay medium-sized dragons, and then you can slay the gigantic dragons.
Nice. Yeah, he's a good person to listen to. I appreciate him as well.
Yeah.
All right. Let's say goodnight for now.
All right.
But I definitely want to continue this on because, like I say, I think this sounds like we need to delve into way more. And I know that we're just scratching the surface by talking to you about Brennan
Yeah, that
and,
was yeah.
and that incident, but it introduced us. So I appreciate that as well.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen, bro.
Uh,
Yep.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to say goodbye to the audience. And if you don't mind sticking around, I
Sure.
just want to do a 10-second catch up with you, if that's okay.
Sure.
But God bless you, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. If you're still watching, make sure to share this out. Obviously, this my intelligent and most special Thomas Speciale has been here to share his experiences so far in life and his worldly knowledge. So I appreciate him. But make sure to share this out so that you can wake up more people, get some more eyeballs on this information, get it out to your social media, because we are being downplayed by all social media, as you expect, because the media is out of control. But I always want to say, let's stay sane together, keep your head on a swivel. And this is Bruce. I'm out of here. Thank you so much for watching Unscrew the News. I appreciate your participation in freedom in Canada. Share this information and help others to wake up. God bless. Mister, that was amazing.
Yeah, great conversation.